So there's a ton of videos, forum and Reddit threads, comments on YouTube about the state of Mythic Plus right now. I've been pretty public about my feelings on the current dungeon pool and the really stale meta, but while buffs and nerfs come and go, one thing never changes. There's always a meta. The top end of the player base will always figure out the best 5 specs to push keys with, and they will always gravitate toward those specs. That's the nature of a competitive game. It happens not just in WoW, but in all competitive games. And the unfortunate thing is that the meta trickles down to the rest of us normies, and the result is that you get people insisting upon only inviting a small handful of specs to their groups, even at a lower level. It seems inevitable, right? A vicious cycle. People figure out the best specs. People only want to invite the best specs, play one of the best specs, or don't get invited. How do we break this cycle? Oh, by the way, ironically, much of this video will be set to the backdrop of me leveling my Holy Paladin or doing keys on my Augmentation Evoker, but I am not part of the problem. It's as bad as it's ever been right now in Mythic Plus. Despite repeated nerfs, the God comp isn't budging, and there are a load of specs collecting dust on the sidelines waiting for some kind of buff to be competitive again. WoW has taken its fair share of criticism in the past for a variety of things, but Mythic Plus is usually one of the bright spots in the game, and I think Dragonflight as a whole has been a pretty good expansion. But 10.1.5 Mythic Plus really has people up in arms, so what do we do about it? Well, for one, the meta is in an extreme case right now because balance in the game is really bad. For just a couple examples of the roles I personally play, Holy Paladin, even after being nerfed heavily since they were reworked despite already being the best dungeon healer in the game, still oceans ahead of the rest of the healing spec. You've also got Augmentation Evoker, an awesome idea and a really fun spec to play, but as the only support spec in the game, it just brings so much to the table that once you've gotten used to playing with one, you never want to play without one again, taking up a DPS spot basically permanently in seemingly all keys of all levels. So, should we nerf the only support spec into a place where it doesn't provide any support? Change it into a pure DPS spec? I mean, I really hope not. I'm glad I don't have to make these kind of decisions. But the real problem with the game is that balance is just broken right now, and I don't think it's minor hotfix broken. I think it's major 10.2 patch please come soon and save us broken. If you've been playing WoW as long as I have, you know that balance kind of comes and goes in this game, and it's not really anything you can count on consistently. So if you don't want to reroll a meta spec, but you don't like sitting in town for hours to find a group to finally invite you, what can you do? I've heard some people advocate for the idea of a solo queue in Mythic Plus, and while the idea is nice when you think about what actually goes into the making of a Mythic Plus group, programming a group finder system to check all those possible boxes seems not only daunting, but also a moving target from week to week. It goes way beyond a tank, a healer, and 3 DPS. Are you going to make sure every group has a Bloodlust, a B-Res? Does the dungeon necessitate a Mass Dispel, Mind Soothe, Shroud? What are the affixes? Do we need a Soothe because it's Raging Week? A bunch of Dispels for Afflicted? How can a group finder system keep up with the various needs that go into putting a Mythic Plus group together? I don't think it would be fair to rate players running dungeons through an automated group finder along with players running organized keys, and I also don't think it's fair for players at the highest level to think that Blizzard would start balancing Mythic Plus dungeons around the needs of solo queue players. So again, what do we do? So like I said, I like the idea of a solo queue in Mythic Plus. I just don't see how it could work and actually give the players a consistent fair shake at timing a key after a certain level. I think there's a large portion of the player base that wants to push keys to the best of their ability, can't or doesn't want to have to do so in a static group, and doesn't want to have to reroll a meta spec. These are the people sitting in town looking for a group for at least as long as they spend actually doing dungeons, and these are the people who get super annoyed and stop playing when the meta gets so set in stone that they can't have fun anymore. So I decided to take the idea and get a little weird with it. If we've got a lot of players who are disgruntled with sitting in town, getting declined over and over again, and just want to play the spec they enjoy and get into some dungeons, it's time for a new game mode, my friends. Introducing YOLO Solo. lots of games have quick match or unranked modes, I'd actually propose a completely separate game mode for Mythic Plus Group Finder, first and foremost because it would absolutely not be fair to rank people who play in a game mode like that against people who painstakingly put group comps together or have the time and resources to change mains every time the wind blows. YOLO Solo would be a different playstyle and experience for sure, and therefore I think it should have a separate rating from your standard Mythic Plus rating. So the point of YOLO Solo is going to be chaos. It's already there, so let's just roll with it. Let's make it the feature of the game mode. Let's encourage it and reward those that can succeed in it. If you pug keys and you've ever spent 45 minutes to find a group just to have the group disband in 45 seconds, first pull in Halls of Valor last season, I'm looking at you. Wouldn't you rather have just gotten the disband quickly so you could move on and try another group? I think YOLO Solo could draw from the same dungeon pool as Mythic Plus, but not the same affixes. You need to throw out affixes that require specific specs, such as Raging or Afflicted. I think it might actually be more fun if you were just given random affixes and a random dungeon each time you queue up. This might even be fun, place where Blizzard could rerun some of the old affixes they've gotten rid of in the past. Maybe not drawing its draws here, guys, but as your YOLO Solo rating goes up, you'd increase the key level you qualify for queuing for and still be grouped with players in your general range. On the other hand, I could see Blizzard going full YOLO with this one and maybe rotating through previous dungeons more quickly or having an extended pool. I think this would also be a different skill set from just running whatever the flavor of the month specs happen to be as well. In this situation, you're going to need to adapt to what you have available to you in order to succeed. Of course, you could argue that the best YOLO Solo specs are still going to be what's best in the Mythic Plus meta, but it won't really matter if it's just a random queue up, anyone can join. I think there's enough specs that have Bloodlust and B-Res nowadays that it wouldn't be a big hindrance if that was a constraint put on the groups, but beyond that, I wouldn't want to put too many rules in place of what qualifies as a complete group. That is kind of the point here after all. Make it work with what you've got. Being adaptable is a skill in and of itself, just like grinding out the dream group comp to utter perfection is a skill. So no, these solo queue players would not be timing keys at the same level as high-end groups. I feel like end of dungeon rewards could probably be about the same though, as timing 20 keys should be pretty doable in an environment like this. Really the point here is that it would legitimize the laughable state of pugging Mythic Plus keys in WoW. The current group finder model is kind of a joke after a certain point. Anyway, the point here is that it would give players frustrated with sitting in town looking for a group or bored of the meta something to do with their time, and would ensure that everyone would get a fair shot at playing some high-ish level dungeons depending on the keys they've timed. I feel like queuing beyond maybe a duo queue might kind of spoil the spirit of the game mode though. I'm not a game developer, guys, and I haven't thought through every scenario, but I do know bad design when I play it, and I think that's what we have in the logjam of high-ish Mythic Plus groups where everyone is so hyper about who they invite to their key that we literally spend more time forming groups than playing. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about this idea and what ideas you've got about what we can do to improve the current state of Mythic Plus right now. Is YOLO Solo something you'd try out? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to see more Mythic content in the future. Check out my stream right here on YouTube, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 9 p.m. Pacific. Got a great community of players in there, and we have a ton of fun. Hope to see you there sometime.